time. Now for a bit of everything on Salford City Radio.
And good afternoon and welcome to Salford City Radio on 94.4 FM, also worldwide at salfordcityradio.org. Well, we've got a really packed programme tonight, which is featuring Back to 60, which you may have heard us talk about in the past. Back in June, I spoke with Joanne Welsh, the campaigns director at Back to 60, about the issues which has affected the 3.6 million women born in the 1950s who are having to wait an additional 6 years to receive their state pensions. A letter has been filed with the government. On the 30th of July, a judicial review application was issued at the Royal Courts of Justice. This evening we're going to be hearing from three of the women on how the raising of the state pension age to 66 has affected them, and also one of the partners of the women. We've got two of the ladies in the studio with one of the ladies' husbands. We'll also be talking to John and Gina from the 3MT about the production of Lizzie's Charter, and also Dr. Davina Lloyd, who delivered a paper to the UN in Geneva. Also, award-winning investigative journalist David Henke and Central Lobby correspondent, PR person Prafula Shah, about the impacts of the unscrutinised policy implemented without consultation or notice. We'll also be talking with Joe Welsh again, who will be giving us an update on the process and the progress that's been made so far. Right, well, I'm joined in the studio tonight by Pamela Setchwell. Hi, Pam, how are you?
Hi, fine, thank you.
I'll just push this microphone a bit nearer for you so you can... okay. The microphone will behave. I've also got Elaine Haig. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, Ian.
And also Terry Haig, who's Elaine's partner. Hi, Terry.
Hi, Ian.
And we're going to be joined shortly by Carol May on the phone, who is another lady who's been affected by the pensions. So, can we start with you, Pam?
Yes.
You are one of the 1950s women affected. Can you tell us about what this has meant for you?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Ian and Salford City Radio for giving us a platform to talk about Back to 60. We're a group who are leading the way to right this terrible scandal done to 1950s women. We're a strong, dedicated team who are leading the way with our campaign, led by Michael Mansfield QC and Nexus Chambers. You'll hear more about us during the programme, and you will hear our stories, which are representative of millions of 1950s women who are sick, poverty-stricken and struggling to survive without their state pensions, stolen by the government by stealth for an average of 6 years. This is my story, but by telling it, I am speaking for many women, some of whom are still unaware of what the government has done regarding their pensions. I'm a widow, aged 64, and have no family. I was suddenly widowed in 2013, the year I was 60, and should have got my pension. I only learnt about the change in state pension age when I wrote for a forecast in 2012. Once I was widowed, I had to use savings to pay bills. Prior to that, I was a carer for my mum. For 5 years, I could only work part-time. The rest of the time I was needed for caring. I was permanently exhausted. I cared for her for 5 years. In the end, she went into a home. I couldn't cope any longer, and unfortunately she died. My late husband had an accident at work, and I cared for him again for about 5 years, whilst working part-time, visiting hospitals, caring at home, having district nurses, and it was all very stressful, very exhausting. Unfortunately, one day I went downstairs and found him dead. I'm still suffering from the trauma. I've got agoraphobia and panic attacks and find it hard just going out. I've nobody now to call on. In the end, I couldn't pay the mortgage and I had to sell my home. I'm now in a small flat. I'm on ESA due to various health conditions, including a head injury suffered during a horse riding accident when I was younger. Many days I feel very depressed, I feel suicidal, I wish it had been me who had died. I'm so lonely and don't see many people. I'm on antidepressants and high blood pressure tablets. I've got arthritis in hands, neck, shoulders, and I'm on strong painkillers. I've no confidence and no money. I'm just existing. It would have been a different story if the government had given me my pension as contracted when I was 60.
Well, thank you, Pam. Thank you, Pam, for sharing that with us. I know it must be quite difficult and it's a difficult situation for you, but thank you for coming on Salford City Radio tonight and, identifying those issues which I'm sure that other people are having those sorts of things as well.
I feel as if I'm speaking on behalf of not just me, but a great many women who are in the same sort of position.
Yeah. Now, I just wanted to mention Sheila Jones, who was going to be with us tonight, but unfortunately she's had a bit of a car breakdown and hasn't been able to make it. So we hope that Sheila's gets home safely, gets the car sorted, gets home safely, and that she can have a listen to the show when we've done on Salford City Radio. I'd like to move on to Elaine now, Elaine Haig. Now, I think are you local, Elaine?
Yeah, we're in Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah. I'll just turn your microphone up a bit. So, would you like to tell us now about your own personal circumstances?
Yeah, in 1973 I started work and paid NI contributions from 16 with an anticipated state pension age of 60 in 2017. I've had no breaks since 16. We have had tragedies in our life, but I don't want to divulge those. No. They're personal to me and to Terry. 6 years in total. Been added to my state pension age with no notification, and I've never received any letter. The state pension age had not changed since 1940, so why would I be expecting it to change? A Freedom of Information Act has proved there were no TV advertisements, no matter what anybody says. When the 1995 Act was introduced, I was 38. I didn't earn enough to save up for a 50k loss of my state pension. In 1995, Microsoft bought out Windows 95. Home computers were just almost non-existent. How were we supposed to get this news about this act that they didn't even write to us about? In later working years, I was looking forward to my anticipated retirement at 60 with my husband. By this time, we would have worked and paid in 96 years between us. Our special time's been lost. It's irreplaceable, and we're devastated. Retirement years are not always healthy years. There's illness, doctors and hospital visits. It's not all cruises and holidays, as some people are making out. I think that we should not have to feel, and I do think I'm speaking for most of the ladies on this one, I don't think we should have to feel that we have to justify our fight for our state pension. We worked, we paid it in, and it's our rightful pension. It is on record that the DWP did mislead us. It's been admitted that this was implemented badly and mistakes were made. I found back to 60, and I found back to 60 at a time when I was really low and almost felt life wasn't worth living. I want to encourage all 1950s ladies who are affected by this injustice to join us at www.backto60.com. All information is there. I still find that many ladies are not aware of this state pension hike, and I hand out leaflets wherever I go to inform about the campaign. What I do want to say is that Back to 60 is a campaign and a team that have given me great support, and the support I get from Back to 60 is incredible. While I'm on that subject, we've got a lady, Jean, whose husband Alan, has had a heart attack and he's very poorly. He's had a big operation. And I want to say to Jean and to Alan that we're thinking of them and they're with us here tonight.
Yeah.
And also, we've had Greer Nicholson, who was in the first film with Pam. Greer died, but she's got a very brave daughter, Callie, who came on to support us, and I want to thank Callie for the support.
Yeah.
And that's what I've got to say.
Thank you for that, Elaine. I know that was very emotional for you there, and I hope you're okay. But
fine.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And I wanted to move on to Terry now, your husband. And obviously, Terry, you've been, you're seeing it from the partner angle of the effect that it's having on your wife and yourself, of course.
That's right, Ian. Yeah, I'd like to bring across the view of the man's side of the this pension scandal, if that's okay with you, Ian. Okay? Right. First of all, I'd like to say, Ian, thank you very much for having us in, and Salfords City Radio, of course. I'd like to start by saying my wife is 7 years younger than me. In 2015, I got my state pension at 65, as promised when I started to work at 15. I always expected to retire at 65 with my state pension. We thought that we would manage, in inverted commas, for 2 years until 2017, when my wife reached 60 and would receive her anticipated state pension, and we would then retire together. At the age of 59, my wife discovered that she would not get her anticipated pension until she was 66. That meant, of course, that we would have to struggle on for an extra 6 years, not 2, 6 years. Her new state pension date is 2023. I will be 73 by then. We were hoping to be able to afford a few simple things in life, like going for the occasional meal or the occasional weekend away. Just the simple things, spending time together. Our hopes and dreams were shattered because of this injustice. I recently had a heart attack, and I feel that the extra stress of this situation has contributed to this. At a time when we should be winding down and enjoying life, we are anxious and stressed, trying to manage on my state pension alone. I do my best to support the 1950s ladies in the fight for the return of their state pension, as I feel they deserve it. I would like to encourage more men to support the Back to 60 campaign, as there are millions of husbands, partners, families and friends who, like me, are affected by this. This state pension debacle affects more than 3.5 million women, their husbands, partners, families and friends. This is roughly 10% of the population of the UK. I must mention that these women are each losing up to £50,000 each, not to mention £200 a year winter fuel allowance, and many do not even get a bus pass, which would be priceless to many who are feeling isolated.
Thank you, Terry. I think you've highlighted the issue of men that are, obviously related to women that are going through this ordeal, and that there needs to be a lot more, as you say, support, and partners can do so much, can't they?
That's right. Yeah. Yes. I just hope that by hearing this broadcast, that many more men do join and give support to these women. Yeah. These women are working so hard behind the scenes. Let's give them the support, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely. Right, I'm going to move now to hopefully I've got Carol May on the phone. Are you there, Carol?
Yes, I am. Yes, hello.
Yeah. Hi, Carol. Yes, you're joining us on the phone, aren't you? I don't know whereabouts you are actually. I'm
down south in Hertfordshire.
Yeah. Now you've been affected by the pensions, haven't you? The pension age being raised. Mm-hmm. Would you like to tell us? Would you like to be able to describe what the effects have had on yourself, if that's okay?
Well, I live in what's supposed to be a prosperous county, and I'm an educated woman. I've got a degree and everything else, but because of my mental health issues, I have actually worked self-employed for a long time, but so that then I can just work when I'm well. but my husband left 9 years ago and then went bankrupt. So I actually became homeless and bankrupt in my 50s. And couldn't work at that point because my mental health was so poor. And eventually, thankfully, I was actually housed by a local charitable trust I happened to see an advert for in the paper. But without them, I have absolutely no idea. I assume I would still be homeless.
Yeah.
And so once I was housed by them, I thought, well, okay, then I'll get my state pension at 60. And in fact, before that, I would be able to claim pension credit because my ex-husband was claiming pension credit from the age of 60, while he then went on to receive his state pension at 65. But then a friend of mine who was the same age as me, and I'm coming up to 64, so I was born in October 1954, and she was born a bit earlier, and she said, "You do realise, don't you, that actually we don't get our pension at 60 anymore?" And I had not been told this at all. I'd had no official notification at all, and I've since discovered that actually, that because of my birth date, my pension was set at 66 in the 1995 Act, which has been denied all along. I've looked at all the stuff behind the Act, and that's when my pension age was changed to 66. So I should have been informed a very long time ago.
Yes.
Anyway, pardon?
Yes, I was saying quite right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyway, my daughter has yet again saved me, if you like, because I have, because of my mental health issues, my self-worth is not very high. In fact, it's probably beneath the floor most of the time. And so I just thought, well, it's not worth me hanging around because life is so stressful. I can't actually cope with this. I can't do this anymore. I can't survive without being able to pay my bills. And at my age, I can't live on the street. And it's amazing how few people that I know actually realise that there is no safety net for women like us. There is absolutely nothing out there other than job seekers allowance for 6 months. And then after that, you're left with absolutely zero. You might be able to get a bit of help with your rent, but that's it. And that is the amount of benefits now available for women like us. It has been cut hugely. We don't even get our council tax paid. And I just said to my daughter, well, I might just as well end it now because, quite frankly, there's no point. I can't do this. I just can't do this anymore. And she just said to me, if you leave me, Mum, I will never forgive you. And I didn't. I didn't at that point because I couldn't bear to pass on the pain to her.
Yes.
But nobody... my brother-in-law said to me, well, how do people get out of this situation? And I said, they don't. They kill themselves. Many, many women out there who are like me, they're on their own, and actually they kill themselves because they can't bear it anymore. I've worked my whole life. Even when my children were little, I worked. I worked on the farm. I taught evening classes. I wrote books. I worked the whole time. And both my children, I brought them up to work, pay their tax, all that sort of stuff. And, I am left in this situation because of my ex-husband's business decisions and the fact that he went bankrupt. So we lost everything. We lost all our pension investment, if you like. They don't take your pension as such, but all the other money that we've invested. And because I am so hard up, I couldn't afford to take him to court to get a little bit of his pension.
That makes it more difficult, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And people just... I have to rely on... My daughter now pays for my food, and so she set up an account for me and I order my food online. She pays for it. And friends help me out. But some of those are, in fact, all of those are just, they're other women. They're not people who are secure in their finances or anything. They are other women who feel the struggle.
Yes, yeah.
And they feel the pain that those of us who are really suffering are going through. And this is wrong. This is so wrong. You know, that people... Our MPs are there. They're supposed to represent us. They're supposed to be in... we elected them to be in a position of looking after this country's finances, and they're not. And they have targeted women because they think we're a soft touch. Well, you know what? We're not. We're not a soft touch. We're fighting back. And we want what is rightfully ours. Yeah.
I think you've said it quite clearly there, Carol. And big thank you there for coming and sharing your story with us. And I hope that, I do hope that things get better for you. And I do hope that this gets resolved and that yourself and others get that pension that, that you were waiting for at 60. And as you say, not everybody was informed about this. And, some people have been given little information and unaware. And as you say, you bought into something and then it changes when you get to the end of it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and you're left, with nothing.
Yeah. A big thank you, Carol, for coming on tonight and talking to us on Salford City Radio. And what we're doing now, I'm going to talk to Gina and John from 3 Minute Theatre. But thank you very much, Carol. And, as I say, I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right, I'm going to play a track now. Thank you there to Carol with that very emotive story for obviously women that are being affected and those issues that are very real for everybody out there. I'm going to move on now to play a track by Little Sparrow. This is a track she did at Kendal Calling. This one's called Baggy Trousers.
Headmasters breaking all the rules, having fun and playing fools, smashing up the woodwork tools. All the teachers in the pub, passing round the ready rub, trying not to think of when the lunchtime bell will ring again. Oh, what fun we had, but did it really turn out bad? All I learned at school was how to bend, not break the rules. Oh, what fun we had, but at the time it seemed so bad, trying different ways to make a difference to the day. Headmasters had enough today. All the kids have gone away, gone to fight with next door school. Every term that is the rule. Sits alone and bends his cane. Same old backsides again. All the small ones tell tall tales, walking home and squashing snails. Oh, what fun we had, but did it really turn out bad? All I learned at school, was how to bend, not break the rules. Oh, what fun we had, but at the time it seemed so bad, trying different ways to make a difference to the day.
Right, that's Baggy Trousers there from Little Sparrow. Just got a bit of information on that to read when I find me notes. Anyway, what I want to say now, hello to John Topliff from the 3 Minute Theatre. Hi, John, how are you?
Hi, thanks, Ian. Little Sparrow did her album launch a couple of years ago.
That's right, yes, I came to it. It was wonderful. It really, I've never forgotten. It was a wonderful, wonderful night, that. So, right, I need to talk to you about Lizzie's Charter, which is a production which is going to be taking place at the 3 Minute Theatre in October, I believe.
It is, yeah. I'm representing Gina, who's the co-producer, and I'm one of the writers and the producer. Gina, my wife, Gina Frost, is the director, and she's affected by this absolute scandal. Lynn Toole, who's the main actor, is also affected by this scandal, and we're just trying to teach them a lesson, if you like. We are a production company, the Manchester Shakespeare Company. We do productions of political theatre. We've been doing it for quite some time now, and this is based on Lysistrata, which is a Greek play from 430 BC, where the women of Athens occupy the Acropolis to try and stop the war and have a sex strike at the same time. So, comedy being a very serious business, as you probably know, this is what we're trying to do it was Gina's idea to do this in order to really raise awareness of this situation, because there are still a lot of people, a lot of women out there who do not know it's happening. And the whole point of it was the various governments tried to steal some money from somebody to pay for their mistakes, trying to find out the people who they thought would at least be able to fight back. Well, they picked the wrong lot of people. They really have. So it's basically a comedy, but it follows the story of Lizzie Carter, who's reaching 60 and looking forward to being retirement, looking forward to a pension, and of course she doesn't get it because she hasn't been told. So her and her friends occupy the town hall of Torytown. It's an imaginary place called Torytown.
Right.
Where the mayor of Torytown is a fellow called Boris de Piffle. And he has a chief finance officer called Gideon Poshborn. And they're the ones that cook up the plan to steal the pensions. So it's a farce, if you like, but it's a very serious farce. And all the things that happen are what's been happening to people. I've listened to Carol's story earlier. All these things are actually happening right now. And nobody seems to be able to do anything about it.
No. Well, I suppose we're hoping that by that time that play is on, that things may have changed. I mean, that would be quite wonderful, wouldn't it, if that situation had changed?
So, yeah. Like I say, 3.5 million women have been affected by this. They weren't told. They're trying to brush it under the carpet. So we're using, there's me and Gina and Diane Rimmer and Lynn Toole. They're the main people that are doing this. And we're all trying to raise this as an issue. And we're hopefully going to take it down to London in November. We've got a crowdfunder out to play Conway Hall in November, where it'll be live streamed from there to all over the country. And then we're looking to tour it into places where people are unaware, just to keep it in the news, keep it going. Because, it's just being brushed under the carpet, to be honest. Yeah,
it needs raising, doesn't it? Raising awareness.
And just to say, Terry, again, men, you need to get on this. You just can't just sit on your hands and do anything, do nothing. You need to get on this and support these women.
Yeah.
Because there's real suffering out there.
Yeah.
And it's just an absolute disgrace. But these women have worked all their lives, the same as the men, and then all of a sudden they've been targeted. I think Carl said they've been targeted as a group of people least likely to fight back. And that's typical of these people. And we know who they are. We know who's done this. So we're just going to try and hold them to account.
Yeah.
With theatre.
Yeah. Now, Elaine says he's got some flyers here for you, which is the actual flyers to give out to people, the 1950s women being cheated out of the pension entitlement. So they're A5 leaflets, so she's going to leave them at the radio station. If you or Gina can call in and pick them up to hand out to anybody that needs them.
We have the vegan cafe open during the day, so there's lots of people coming through here.
Yeah.
And the theatre's open in the evening as well.
Yeah. So what date is it in October? Can you remind us, John, when that's on?
15th to the 20th of October.
Yeah. And tickets are selling well, are they?
Yes, we've had quite a few people, but we're getting groups of women coming. We also need groups of younger women to support them and men to support them as well.
We need everybody behind this, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right, John, thank you very much. I'm sorry I have to cut you short there a bit.
Don't worry.
We've got
Thank
quite
you
a
very
few
much,
people
Ian.
to...
Good luck
Well,
to
thank you
everybody.
very much, and thanks for talking us to tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye. Right, next track. This is going to be the featured artist for August on Salford City Radio. Grassroots, and I think this one is called Games of Love.
Secrets to yourself. Your love was a poker game. I couldn't read your face. When you threw all in, I felt the pain. My soul won't take much more. It's a losing game. All at once the lights turned on. When I gambled with my heart, like the roulette wheel I span right back to the start. This game of life is just too hard. It only takes a turn of the cards to break your heart. Games of love, yes, I've played them once or twice. But when they rolled, I should have known they were loaded dice. Now I've turned my back on all those crazy games. I don't take the risk, I won't feel the shame. My losing slips lie in the rain. My horses turned to dust. The running dogs were a pack of lies. Every day it was twist or bust. I won't waste any time on the loss and gain. My soul won't take much more. It's a losing game. Games of love, yes, I've played them once or twice. But when they rolled, I should have known they were loaded dice. Now I've turned my back on all those crazy games. If I don't take the risk, I won't feel the shame. You dealt the card, you shuffled the pack. You dealt the card, you shuffled the pack. You dealt the card, you shuffled the pack. It was a losing game.
That's Grassroots, our featured artist for August on Salford City Radio. Right, right now I've got another guest on the phone. We're talking to back to 60s activists tonight. I think I don't know if that's that word to use, but I've got now on the phone, I've got Dr. Davina Lloyd, and Davina delivered a paper to the UN recently. Good afternoon, Davina, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you, Ian, and thank you so much for speaking to us all this afternoon. It was heartbreaking to hear all those stories of the women who've been on so far. I'm getting a bit of feedback on this line. Are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay. It seems to be all right at the moment. Yeah.
It's all right at your end?
Yeah. You're coming through loud and clear,
it's just me that's getting the feedback.
All right.
Yes, I went to Geneva on the 23rd of July for a meeting of CEDAW. That's the Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. And it's part of the UN Charter. It was set up in 1979. And I went there to represent back to 60 and the scandal of what has happened to 1950s women. And I presented to them a paper by David Henke, the investigative journalist, who I know you're going to be speaking to in a moment.
Yes.
Who just knocked down all the ideas that the governments have been used to justify this discrimination. He talked about the sheer numbers of women, the fact that the money had been stolen from them, £271 billion stolen from the National Insurance Fund, and more importantly, the fact that women aren't living longer, as they stated, was a reason for putting the pensions up. And interestingly, that was on the BBC News at lunchtime, that people in this country are no longer living as long, and we're not expanding longevity as we thought we would. So what I was able to do, and this is the good news story after so much heartbreak that you've heard today, is that I was able to talk at the UN about how much support Back to 60 has had from lots of other women's groups who are all joining with us under one voice. And we had support from EHRC, which is the Equality and Human Rights Committee. In fact, David Isaacs, who's the chair of the EHRC, had tweeted his support for our case at the event. And I made lots of really good contacts with lawyers, with other women's groups in Scotland, Ireland, Wales, England, and our campaign is just growing and growing. And we're getting a lot of support across the country, and it's all very exciting at the moment. And hopefully, we will be able to get this issue resolved. And the UK, as you know, has one of the lowest and least generous state pensions in the developed world. And the austerity measures have affected women most, let alone on top of all this problem about not giving them their pensions.
Yeah. Now, how have you been affected by the pension changes?
Well, unlike hundreds of thousands of women and the women you've spoken to today, I have been extremely lucky in that I have a very good works pension. And I live on that very happily. That doesn't mean that the government has a right to steal everything else in my bank account and to take the pension that I'm owed away from me, or to mess about so much with my pension. I retired in 2007, and I was expecting my pension at 60. And I checked because I was anxious and I wanted to make sure I'd have enough money to live on. Up until January 2013, I was entitled to a full pension. By 2015, I was entitled to only 60%. And now I'm part of some sort of transitional arrangement and might get 76%, although that is only a might get. I mean, since I retired, they've changed my pension 6 times after I had retired, moving the date to 63, 64, 66, back to 65.5, and I will never get the full pension that I was promised in 2013.
Now, why should the government prioritise women's pensions?
We're not asking them to prioritise women's pensions. The government has got a lot on its plate at the moment, but we all paid in national insurance contributions to ensure we would have a pension. If we paid those contributions into a private pension pot, we'd be able to get them out now. In fact, as part of my work, I did have a top-up pension with a private company, and you just pay in, you get it out. The national insurance pot is ring-fenced, and payments can only be used for certain welfare expenditure and cannot be used to fund general government spending. So the money that would be given to us would not disadvantage other worthy causes like the national health or education, because it's a different pot. The slight problem with that pot is that the government have not been topping it up as they were legally supposed to. David will be able to give you the full details on that. And 2.71 billion, effectively, has been stolen. And it's been stolen from the group of women who were adversely affected by everything else the government is doing, and that's the women born in the 1950s. And the government has a moral responsibility to put this right.
Yeah. Now, and finally, where is the government going to find the money from? And I think you may have answered some of that in the last question.
Well, they haven't got all the money because they've spent it. It's no longer there. Yeah. But they have enough. And MPs have raised this in Parliament on more than one occasion. You can go through the Hansard records and see there currently is in excess of £30 billion in the National Insurance Fund. That's the highest amount of money been in there, I think, for a long, long time. That's more than enough to start paying back the money that women are owed, even if you have to keep back 2 months' reserves for Social Security payments. I think when Guy Opperman talks about this, he talks about it being a much bigger figure, and he talks about it being paid out all at once. You don't pay it out all at once. Pensions are annual, and they occur over a number of years. So we're not talking about it all coming out at once. We're talking about there being enough in there now to do something now. The government has just got to grasp this nettle and deal with it and act responsibly and properly as a government should do towards the people who have elected it.
A big thank you, Davina, for coming on Salford City Radio to talk to us tonight about Back to 60, which is a very important issue, and we all hope that this gets resolved as quickly as possible for, as you say, the 3.67 million women out there that are having to wait another 6 years for the pension.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ian.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Right, I've got a track now I'm going to play. We're going to be talking to David Henke in a minute, but this is taking us back to the 60s, and I'm sure some of these, our guests here will actually know Procol Harum, back to 1967. A very short track, but a very, one of my favourites.
Still scowling black, good Captain Clack must eat his humble pie. His bed is made, the colours fade, his eyes one swears are dry. The naked muse who sits and chews tobacco off a tree, removes his shoes, gives way to booze, and searches endlessly. See the naked jumper like sin is aphrodisiac. Cotton picking farmers three. Oh, I lost my weather vane, and since I have one brain, I've gone sipping lemon tea. Scowling black, good Captain Clack must eat his humble pie. His bed is made, the colours fade, his eyes once wet are blue.
Yes, that was Procol Harum there, and a track called Good Captain Clack, which is only very short, which is thankfully tonight. But I've got David Henke on the phone, and now David is an award-winning investigative journalist, and you've been looking into some alarming information, haven't you, in the National Insurance Fund?
Yes, I have. I mean, basically, there's been a big campaign, both by Back to 60 and also WASPI, for women who were basically 1950s born women who suddenly found they were going to have to wait 5 or 6 years for a pension. The government have always said there's no money for this at all. There couldn't be. It will cost us over £70 billion to pay for them. So I researched back using a House of Commons library report to how this had happened, and discovered in the late 1980s under Lady Thatcher's government, a decision was taken to stop funding the National Insurance Fund by the Treasury. And basically it always provided at least 16-17% of the money, because not only does the fund pay for pensions, it pays for things like job seekers allowance and maternity allowance. Now, the decision to do this meant that for the next 24 years there was virtually no money paid from the Treasury. And I then discovered a wonderful report by a chap who advised the Labour government in the 1970s, which said the result of this was every year £11 billion was not put into the fund, which basically means over that period amazing £271 billion was never put into the National Insurance Fund. And really it drives a massive hole through the case of the government saying, oh, we can't do anything about it, we can't afford it, because previous governments took the decision, knowing that actually people would live much longer, to actually starve the fund of money.
Right, no, that's worrying, isn't it?
Does that explain it?
Yeah, it does, yes, yeah. Yeah, no, that's really good, that, David. That's information is very important, isn't it? I'm running quite late on the show at the moment, so I'm just wondering, is that okay if we sort of finish the interview there? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key point I want to get over. The money is there and something can be done.
Yeah. OK, David, look, thank you very much for joining us tonight on Salford City Radio. And again, apologies that it's such a short interview with you.
OK, well, that's all right. But at least I've got my main point over.
Yeah. OK.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Right. Around and round Dojo Clock, round and round I say, around and round Dojo Clock, I'm going away. Dojo Clock had a mule, name was Morgan Brown. And every Tuesday night Bill's head was 16 inches round. Around and round Dojo Clock, round and round I say, round and round Dojo Clock, I'm going away. I'm going back to walking, so guess I'm gonna stay. I'm going back to walking, so to what's them women brain. Around and round Dojo Clock, round and round I say, around and round Dojo Clock, I'm going away. Around and round Dojo Clock, round and round I say. Around and round Dojo Clock, I'm going away.
That's old Joe Clark there. Do you remember the chap with the accordion on his back and all the drum and the one-man band? Right. Very quickly, I want to say hello to Joanne Welsh. She's the campaign director for Back to 60s. We've been listening to quite a lot of people there that have been affected and obviously key people from Back to 60 and have worked for Back to 60, Joe.
Yeah, good evening, Ian. Thank you for inviting me along. Yeah, I mean, we are delighted to be part of your show and we appreciate very much your support.
Oh, that's great, Joe. I'm glad you've been able to... It's good to speak to you again.
And you, I mean, as you will have been told by earlier guests, we've applied for the JR to be issued. And, you know, I've got a legal statement. If I could share it with you.
Yes, certainly. Yeah.
Basically, the consensus within the legal team is that the pension policy implemented by successive governments in respect of women of a particular age group constitutes a gross injustice. The impact on the economic, social and mental well-being of these women, who rightly enjoyed a perfectly legitimate expectation of satisfactory provision in retirement, has been devastating. The extent of individual distress and hardship is only now becoming evident. It is deeply ironic that all of this is done in the name of equalisation and equality, when the very means employed to achieve this are themselves discriminatory. It is intended that the current pension policy be subjected to both public and judicial scrutiny, and therefore steps are being taken towards mounting a judicial challenge. And seriously, you know, when we went to the High Court, it was a mixed emotions, really. We were very disappointed to be put in a position where we have to go to court, but at the same time we had alternative routes had stagnated, and you know, I could go into a whole lot of detail about that.
Yeah.
But the good news is Salfords Society, who you will have heard of, they're a leading charity, women, you know, supporting gender equality and women's rights. We've been speaking with them, and they've agreed to walk along this journey with us, and they're actually supporting our Twitter storm tomorrow at 12 noon, which we're absolutely thrilled about. We've also, we went out to Geneva, as you would have heard from Davina,
yes.
Dr. Davina Lloyd, and in that network Network, Professor of Feminist Legal Studies, former President of the European Women Lawyers Association, has kindly offered to provide us with an amicus brief, which is an academic paper covering international EU and pension law. And we're hoping for our legal team to approve these papers and submit them as background papers as part of our JR. We've also submitted evidence to the UN Special Advisor on Extreme Poverty, a survey from SOS Silence of Suicide, which depicts, suicidal thoughts, annihilation of lives, basically, lots of personal stories and our full statement as evidence. We've really been very busy, and we're happy to share with the issue. And the last thing is that the National Insurance Fund is in the black, and, as David Henke has said, there's £271 billion missing, so there's plenty of funds to return our own dues to us, and we can't see why that wouldn't be done immediately.
Yeah. Now, I suppose you have to wait for the judicial review to be carried out now, Joe, is that right?
Well, yeah, you go to the commission stage, and there's only a few stages, actually, to the claim being granted, so we're highly optimistic. There's lots of great people around us who are so supportive. We're very privileged, actually, to have the people around us who are so generous, including yourself and Salford City Radio. I mean, it just is uplifting and very encouraging.
Yeah. I'm going to have to end it there, Joe. I'm sorry we're coming up to the news, but thank you for joining us tonight on Salford City Radio, and let's hope that things get resolved very quickly for everyone.
We're praying. Thank you, Ian.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.